We are recording it now. So communication is important, but so is most of the stuff in this one's the safety one. So this is the older one. So and like I said before, if you notice something is vastly different, let me know. I think this one should have stayed mostly the same, but in case it isn't, let me know so I can adjust things for everybody. So communication skills and workshop safety as it pertains to heavy equipment technician. So this is going to be particular to us. So communicate trade-related information, standard terms for components and operations. Describe applications of wire rope, and describe the use of jacking and blocking techniques on common off-road and on-road equipment. Most of that's all going to be standard, whether you're blocking up something on-road or off-road is the same. So all the people involved in the repair, including the owner, service manager, service advisor, and techs, are responsible for good communication. For those of you who deal with customers, communication is everything. It's very, very crucial. Would you rather take your piece of equipment to a place where the employees complained constantly about they hate their boss, they hate their manager, they hate working at this stupid crap hole, and they wish they had another job? Or would you rather go to a place where everyone looked professional, they communicated effectively, and they had good attitudes? Most people would rather take it to a place where people have a good attitude. Another thing when it comes to communication, sometimes you might be difficult to communicate with people. We had lots of Russian truck drivers, and they didn't necessarily know very good English at all, so it was very difficult to communicate with them. And then when they did try to speak English, it was really, really thick accent. It's almost impossible to understand them. So when it comes to estimates, this has become so much more important now. We can only vary from estimates by a certain percentage. So for your service department personnel, this has become really, really, really crucial. Putting an estimate in writing is making an agreement that that's how much it should cost. So you need to be very efficient when you're communicating to a service writer who's going to be giving these estimates to customers. These repair bills can be thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. And if you're missing things and all of a sudden this bill starts going all up, there's going to be a point where the customer is going to say, you gave me an estimate. I'm not going to pay for all this additional work. Oh, well, my tech didn't see before, or he didn't tell me before. Well, that's not my problem as a customer. That's your problem as a manager. So anyhow, efficient communication is very, very crucial. Other words that are good to avoid. So yet again, I don't have too much of a problem if I was in my service office and a technician came and he said, hey, that brake drum ain't no good. It's wore out. I measured it. And it's beyond spec. That's fine with me. When we're communicating, you have to know your audience. Now, if you were going to go to a customer, I would probably say, well, I measured the brake drum and compared it to new specifications, and it's worn beyond service, rather than saying it don't work, okay? Slang over using the correct terminology is much more professional. But yet again, know your audience too. If you're on a good relationship with your service manager and you're just talking about this trailer that blew up, that's fine, okay? This is a good example here. You don't want to be doing this in front of customers, okay? It just shows unprofessionalism, and they might regret bringing their unit to you, okay? Another thing, that I've seen private shops. So there's going to be a name on the door here, you know, whatever the transportation, blah-de-blah transportation company. Well, if you're this technician here and you're saying, man, this company always has the biggest junk and I hate working on it, it's a piece of crap, then the driver's right here, it's probably going to get back to his company. And who knows, maybe this company has 2 units, not the end of the world, but maybe you had a contract with this company to service all 1,000 of their power units and 1,000 of their trailers. And now this gets back to the service manager over at the other place. Well, you know what? We used to like them, but not if they're going to treat us like that. So we're going to send our equipment somewhere else. Okay. Listening. Humans, us, we are terrible. I am probably the worst for this because my job is, especially right now, I'm just sitting here talking for the last 2.5 hours, 3 hours, and I get very little feedback from all of you. It's a little bit better if you're in the class. But essentially, I'm just talking. Listening is a skill that most people take the wrong way. We listen to respond rather than listening to hear. So what that means is while someone else is talking, we're constantly thinking of how we're going to respond to what they're saying, rather than actually just listening and hearing what it is their concerns are. Okay, so really, really important to talk about that. Does it make a noise? Yeah. Can you describe what it is? A clicking noise that occurs after it's hot and when I step on the accelerator. All right, well, okay, where does the clicking noise happen? Right, there's lots of other things, and really pay attention and listen for those answers, okay? Sometimes, in a situation like this, you could have your customer saying, hey, you know what? They could be telling you in not so many words, hey, when I really overload the heck out of this thing, it starts to break. And then that's the point where you can say, hey, maybe you shouldn't operate it like that because that's beyond its specifications, okay? Visual. As much as it seems difficult to, you want to be a clean technician looking professional rather than this one. Now for our trade, sometimes it's okay, and I want to say that nowadays biases are going away because of visual, how you look visually, but it still does play a factor. So, and that's talking about things like dirty coveralls, dirty clothes, you smell bad, your hair hasn't been, like, sure, have long hair, but at least maybe brush it, put it in a ponytail. And I mean, if you have long hair like this, I don't know why you'd want it like that. If any of you have had long hair and got it caught in a creeper wheel, you know, you much rather would have a haircut like that, or keep your hair up under your hat like I would do, because it sucks to get it caught in things. Written is very, very important. Must be easy to read and understand. Print if your handwriting isn't illegible. We need to complete records such as service reports and warranty claim information. They're both very crucial. One thing all of you are going to start getting involved in, or most of you probably, is CVIPs. That work order that you're filling out a story on for a CVIP could end up being read into evidence in a court. So you don't want to have that time where you wrote on that service report where it said his stuff was real messed up and it was all broke and so I changed it. You're going to want to write on there that brakes were worn beyond the specifications to this number, replaced with new. Brakes weren't functional because of this problem, repaired, brakes function correctly. Okay. You don't want to have to sit in a witness box and try and justify why, I don't know, you drew a bunch of doodles of happy face stick men on the service report. Okay, that would not be a fun thing to do. The other thing is when it comes to warranty claim information, lots of money on the line when it comes to warranty, and you personally could cause the warranty to be rejected because of your keeping track of all the information. So, and your written language can determine that. Picture of a service report. Some of you may have seen things like this, a complaint section or a guideline on questions to ask operators of how things are happening, or this might be something the service writer would ask before you ever see the unit. And then when your work order comes in, this is all going to be on it, so you have a little more information. So it says personal appearance, but that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about safe working habits, our learned behaviors. And remember I said at the biggest, you're your own biggest advocate. So your attitude is the biggest contributor to safety. If you feel like, oh, I don't have to do that, screw it, I'm not gonna, that's not a good attitude. Your attitude has to be, well, to keep everybody safe all the time, I need to wear my safety glasses all the time, so I wear my safety glasses all the time. That's a good attitude to have. Business appearance is another thing. You would probably want to go to Tony's over Larry's, just because Tony's place looks like a lot nicer. They've got it cleaned up, taken care of it. I haven't heard anybody talk in a long time. Is everybody still there? Can you hear me and everything? Someone?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, still here.
Now I have
We
to
hear you.
looking at me. Perfect. Thank you. Sometimes I just need to know that somebody is there. So that's all. All right. So the customers, just because they have old stuff doesn't mean you should put them down. Okay. Like I said, where'd you get this piece of crap anyway? Who cares? He's your customer. He's paying your bills. Okay.
Just means more work for you.
Oh, it does, but I mean, you get paid by the hour. Typically. And that's where good communication comes in. Hey, Mr. Customer, this unit hasn't been maintained in a long time. If it needs a lot of work done, our estimate's going to be pretty high. So it's a work between you, the service writer, and the customer. I mean, yeah, there might be a lot of work. It might be a pain in the butt. I mean, it's the name of the game if you're a mechanic, though. Right? Being a technician is a certain kind of work. So. And like I said, most of us get paid by the hour. I haven't met anyone. Is anyone out there piece rate? Like you get paid by the job, a certain amount?
Isn't that like a dealership thing?
Even heavy duty dealerships don't do that. They pay people by the hour. But car dealership, like I said, if anyone was an automotive mechanic, that would be like that. Lots of places do that. So what that means is, according to the book, and there is book time on heavy equipment, that's how they bill or make estimates, is based on these book times. For instance, so let's say it takes an hour to change brakes on a Honda. Well, Honda is going to give you a job. You're doing brakes for your first job. We're going to pay you an hour. We're going to pay you an hour whether it takes you 5 hours or half an hour. That's how they pay. As far as I've seen, I haven't met anyone in heavy duty who's getting paid like that. For us in heavy duty, it would be, we're going to do brakes. Brakes generally take an hour. Here is your estimate for an hour. Our technician also found that your unit is especially worn and hasn't been maintained properly. So we're going to add extra time for each rusted lug nut. So there is a time, a book time, for an additional 10 minutes for each rusted lug nut, or 5 minutes on there. So you add that time on. There's additional time for a drum that's seized on or stuck onto the hub that you would add on there as well. So then that's how they bill for the time that you used. Okay. Does that sort of make sense? Now, suppliers representatives. Who has ever gone to the parts counter and you got the wrong thing?
Once.
Once? Or lots?
All the time.
And that's
Yeah,
being
all the time.
The blame can be shared 50-50 in my case.
I agree. Sometimes it isn't necessarily just their fault. It's your fault. Sometimes it's their fault. Sometimes it's your fault. Sometimes it's no one's fault. It can be a bit of a process. Good communication is probably the best way to try and eliminate that. But still, even with the best communication in the world, you could end up with the wrong parts. Okay. This is how part names and trade names are very good to use. If you go and ask this guy, I'm trying to think of something. I can't even think of a part right now that has a couple of good different names to it. So as a tradesperson, you should hold yourself to a specific standards. We are all going to be journeymen. We want to be not looked at as the bottom of the barrel deplorables or just blue collar workers. We want to be treated with respect and professional. Yet again, every time you drive down the road, take a look at those tractor trailers that are out there with the blue stickers on it. Somebody like you or I is making sure that those are safe. We want them to be professional, clean, have a good understanding of what they're doing, be honest, not cutting corners, okay? Something else to do to be professional, like I said, dude, don't badmouth businesses. Never, even if they're your competitor. You don't want to be the business that has to put everybody else down, okay? Quite the opposite. When I worked in the city, the trailer dealership, we actually worked quite closely with the people that you would say would be our competitors. And for instance, my shop did good fabbing and rig ups. And so we would have competitor dealerships sending us units to get rig ups done. And then subsequently, if there's something that we felt they could perform better than we did, we would farm that out too, okay? So work together, not against each other. Exhaust gases. So the most common one you're going to see is from vehicle or equipment emissions. That'll be the most common one. Carbon monoxide, that's what comes in vehicle emissions. That's the most dangerous. What you really have to worry about is if you're running gasoline units, it has a lot of carbon monoxide. CO2 isn't going to be such a concern when it comes to diesel. What is going to be a concern with diesel is soot. So that is carbon buildup, not carbon monoxide, but carbon itself. Okay. So for ventilation, like I said, positive. So the air is extracted by a fan and has makeup air. Air is being pushed back into it. A couple different ways that is attained. So you have this one hooked directly up to this exhaust. Here, it's sucking air in. Or combustion uses shop air and it's just venting out of the roof, not ventilated. So there's nothing in here that is replacing the air. Has anyone ever seen this negative air pressure in the shop? So you open the door and air comes into the shop. That you don't want. If anything, you'd want a positive air pressure in the shop. So as you're opening the door or if you're running a unit, air wants to leave the shop. Okay. Carbon monoxide, bad, very poisonous. It's the effects are cumulative. So if you get exposed to a little bit of carbon monoxide every day, eventually you're going to get carbon monoxide poisoning. Just sort of like lead. Oh, how is wire rope constructed? You know what? I want to go over here. Can everyone see the instructor copy now?
Yep.
Okay, good. This is the one I want to look at. Wire rope lay in construction. So for those of you who there's a few of you who deal with wire rope, right?
A little bit.
A little bit? Okay. Have you ever been asked about this? A left regular lay rope, a right lay regular lay rope? Okay. So what this has to do with is the way the rope is built, okay? A regular, so left lay rope, where is the picture here? That's right in the end. because they don't talk about it as much anymore. So how wire rope is constructed, essentially what they're talking about is the way that these wires and then the strands are wrapped around. So a wire in the wire rope is one individual wire here like this. This is one wire of a wire rope. A strand is all of these wires bundled together. Okay, so that's a strand. And then those all bundled together around a cord are what make the rope. What they're talking about, regular lay and lang lay ropes, is just the way that these wires and strands are rotated. Okay, so you can see this left lay comes from the left and over to the right, and a right lay comes from the right over to the left. Very basic, okay? Now, when they say regular lay, that means that these strands do the same thing. So you can see they come over, and this one, left lay, they're coming from one side to the other, okay? Here, they're coming from the opposite as that. In a lang lay rope, they will look different. They will actually be wound like this, sideways around here. So how regular lay rope, all of the strands follow the center line. You can sort of see that. They're all going down with the center line. A lang lay rope would have these opposed to the center line, like this. Okay. I wouldn't get too stressed about this wire rope construction. Okay, a lang lay, you can see it doesn't go straight up and down. You can see how they come across. They come across. They're not straight with the center line of the rope. How do you measure a wire rope? Go on the peaks of the strands, not in between two like this, because this will be a wider dimension than this is. This is the actual size of the rope. Different classifications. If you need to worry about ordering wire rope, dig into this more. But other than that, it's not the end of the world, okay? And then just different nominal strengths. I mean, anyone who says they have all this stuff memorized is lying to you. If you need to know this, you're going to need to look it up. Same company, IPT Publishing. So this is going to be in one of those little handbooks. This is actually probably out of the rigging handbook, wire rope classification. Clips, when it comes to wire rope clips, the number of clips, yes, very important. So those of you using wire rope to hold tarps down, you probably use these type of clips. The one important thing, never ever do what? Anyone remember what it's called?
Stagger, I guess.
Don't saddle a dead horse.
There you go. Don't saddle a dead horse. So this way is an incorrect way because the saddle is on the dead line here. The dead line is going to be the one that isn't pulled on. So I'll finish the picture here. They don't have it. So this picture is a little bit incomplete. This side here is going to go to our winch. So that's on the winch there being spooled up. This side is dead, as in it's not attached to anything. There's the end of the rope right there. So that's the end. This piece of the clip is called the saddle, and you never saddle the dead line. So that's the part of the loop that isn't getting pulled on right here. And the saying is you never saddle a dead horse. So these ones are incorrect because this one is put upside down. They should all be attached the same way, with the saddle portion of the clip being on the live side of the wire. Okay. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Where are you going to see a wire rope? Chances are some of you have seen things like this. Does anyone know what machine is this thing?
Side boom.
Sure, that sounds like an interesting name. So this on a winch, this is where I've seen them mostly, okay? Winch. Wherever you see them wound up on a drum, that's where they'll be. Different ways of ending the wire rope, okay? So you could have a Flemish splice, what they call it, and then a pressed on sleeve. This will be like the slings that are pre-manufactured, or you can have a furl pressed onto the end there too. Sometimes they even knot them. A knot will reduce the rope's strength by 50%, okay? Unwinding wire cable, if you've ever done it, it's interesting. Replacing winch cable or cable for a crane or something, got to make sure you're winding it the correct way and to the correct direction. A lot of times they show that this spool doesn't have anything on it, but a lot of times you're going to have grooves in it, and there's going to be a place where you can either wedge one end of the rope and there'll be grooves in here where it follows around, or for instance on this spool there's a place where the furl locks in, and then you can start spooling. You see which way the rope goes and it's going to start coiling that direction. Okay, he's just using a soft hammer to pack the rope on there tightly as it's winding into place. Twists, kinks, spins like that. There's a break-in cycle for new wire ropes. That's something that I've never done. It's just a matter of, yet again, for someone who's working with cranes and stuff like that, you might have changed wire ropes. Lubricating them. You definitely want to lubricate all wire ropes inside of those strands and wires. They're all going to be moving and stretching, okay? So where's this picture here? What you're trying to do is lubricate all of these internal components. So as these strands are sliding and stretching against each other, they're not rubbing on each other. They're actually lubricated inside of there, okay? All right, jacks and jack stands. The last thing, how do we lift things up? So a jack is commonly used to make a short vertical lift. This is a mechanical jack, so you would put the bar in here and you would start threading this. This ball is where it swivels on so the load can stay stable, and as you thread it, it'll come up. Chances are hydraulic jack are what everybody is using, so thanks to the valving inside of here and the mechanical advantage of the piston, you can use a small lever, a smaller piston to lift up a larger load. And then just some different configurations of hydraulic jacks, some air jacks or air hydraulic jacks, and then transmission jack that people use for everything except transmissions, commonly used all over the place to lift fuel tanks, jockey boxes, panels, beams, frame rails, all kinds of things. And then when you need it for a transmission, it's worn out.
And removing axles.
And removing axles, yeah, that too, yeah, it worked great for a diff. Works good, yeah, if it's not worn out. So any of these devices I've just talked about, can you work underneath of them?
No,
Never. Never. All it's being held up on is fluid or air and fluid, or even in this case, this is probably the safest one, but I bet not many people have mechanical jacks like this at work. If you want to go underneath of a unit, you need to put it on stands or blocking. Now, my big pet peeve about stand, and this happened this summer a lot too. Do you want to get your stands from Harbor Freight? Everybody hear about that? That was going on. So there's a company called Harbor Freight. It's a lot like Princess Auto up here. They were selling jack stands and they were breaking. They would split in half along here and the jack stand would come apart. It was a big thing in the States. There was lots and lots of people who had jack stands breaking. So they need to be engineered properly. They need to have a sticker on them telling you what their weight rating is. That sticker needs to be in place and legible. The other thing about these, is it okay to use a bolt? Right here.
Absolutely not.
No, it definitely is not. Or even right here or here. A bolt is designed to have tensile force put on it, not a shear force. These hardened pins are specifically designed to withstand the shearing effects of a force being pushed down on them like that, okay? If those pins are damaged or gone, you need to get new ones. we're not going to see it much in our industry or in our first year here, but you always, always, always have to block a box before you go under it. All this big hydraulic ram is here is just a bottle jack, okay? You cannot go under it the same way you can't go under a jack. All right, you have to have some sort of solid blocking. Now, who's putting pieces of wood down in this section right here? Is anybody doing that? You get a big 4x4 and you put it right down in here.
Yeah, we used to do that in a shop I worked at.
As a secondary, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. Have you ever put the weight of the box down on that 4x4?
Probably not, but
Haven't, and here's why. Has anybody seen what old school nutcrackers look like? Like, I mean, just the handle. It's sort of got like one big handle with a pivot point and another handle on it. And then they have teeth somewhere around here, hey? And you put a walnut inside of there and you squeeze those two ends together and it cracks the walnut. Is everyone familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Does this not sort of look like a big walnut cracker where you just put your 4x4 in right where the walnut should go? It does, and it is.
Yes.
The 4x4, unless it's hard wood, really compressed and in good shape, if this box, the weight of it goes on there, it's not going to stop it. Not even close. They sell a couple different jack stands specifically that go inside of here. They look like a jack stand that bolts onto the frame or chain. You put a chain on the frame and it sits on the frame rail, holds the box up, and there's a pair of them. Those work great. Some tractors come with these built in, like this one might fold out of the way and lay down in here when it's not being used. That's great. Something that's engineered to actually hold the box up that isn't wood.
You got to remember that tree is still mad at you for cutting it down. It'll kill you if it gets a chance.
You go, yeah. I'm one to not use wood in very many applications. Now, right here, they're showing you to put a piece of equipment on wood. Can you use wood for blocking in this instance? Yes. Now, the difference between this right here, having a piece of wood, and right here is what I know what the practice is. So in this picture here, the weight is all on the wood already, and it's supported on there. With this, with the box, what they're doing and what I've seen people do is the weight is still on the hydraulic ram. And they're just putting this in here to, like somebody said, a secondary for a feel good. You feel good that this is sitting here, right? Little do you know that if this actually did fail and came down, this wouldn't do anything for you except make a noise and you'd say, hey, what's that? And then you'd be dead. That's about how quick it'll happen. So a bit different. It's the same thing, wood being used as blocking, but it's a bit of a different circumstance, okay? That wood can't take that shock crushing load. You need to know what the weight rating is, okay? These ones are nice. It has 12 ton and 6 ton put right onto it. Very good. Make sure those pins are the correct ones. Now, this picture, it can't show you very good, but I've seen lots of people who tried to lift up the front end of their tractor and then end up with an oil spill because they're trying to lift from the oil pan. So make sure you're lifting at the proper lifting point, okay?
Inspect your jacks.
So inspect your jacks, yeah. And also don't go too high up. I would never lift the wheel higher than it needed to shimmy off of a unit, okay? When you pick your unit up into the air, you should just be able to slide the wheel off of that hub. So I've seen people who put them as high up into the air that their jack and jack stand will go, and I don't know why you would want to lift your tire up onto that. That's just going to cause back pain, strain, extra work.
Coming from a tire guy who's pulled off thousands of wheels,
Yeah.
if it's more than an inch off the ground, your wheel will kink on the hub and it will make it twice as hard to pull that wheel off.
Mm-hmm. If it's just high enough, if you're at that perfect height where you can shimmy it right off and it just slides on the ground, that's perfect. It'll be so easy to get it on and off. But yeah, I agree with you. A lot of the time you get that difficulty with taking the wheels, even taking them off. on these big hubs because it's trying to kink on there. It has so much flex that it can move back and forth. So
The weight is off-centered on a dual, so the mounting face is way to the side of where the center of gravity is. So
yeah,
it naturally wants the outside wheel naturally wants to kink top out, and the inside wheel naturally wants to kink top in.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're very offset, not in the middle. So yeah, if you allow it, if you give it enough space clearance at the bottom to do that, it will. And then you're just going to be fighting with it the whole time. So. All right. So that's that. Anybody have questions? How's everybody feeling about all this so far?